We're good?
3, 2, 1.
Today we're having beer with Paul Bennetts, CEO of Spaceship and venture partner at Airtree.
Thank you.
Paul, how did this whole thing start?
So I was working at a computer store during my last year of university, and I really kind of understood how to, how it worked, how you kind of talk to customers and all sorts of stuff. And when I finished university, I thought, stuff it. Why not try to do this for myself? It's a super interesting kind of little business, and I ended up doing that for, call it 3 years.
So what was that, building computers and selling it?
Yeah, it's a really basic thing. So I found a little store that used to have a computer store in there. So it went out of business, unfortunately, and so I was able to move in there with the carpet already laid down, all the electricity power points already in. So all the sort of infrastructure was there. I just had to kind of buy some stock and have a go. And it was a wonderful thing because there's no better sort of training ground to really understand how the economics of a business works based on trying to compete with other people in the market.
And how old are you at this time?
20 years old, yeah. So I found that I became more and more interested in how to think about bigger businesses, bigger financial markets, and rather than kind of operating a computer store. So I went back to school, did an MBA, and I also did a CFA, which is like a Chartered Financial Analyst program. It's basically, if you're ever going to be an investment professional, it's like the thing that you do. Yeah. And through that, I managed to get an internship at Goldman's, and then did 5 years at Goldman's. And then I left Goldman's for a role at a family office. There was a family that had sold a very big business called the Mac Services Group. They sold it for, I think the number is $652 million, like, very big number. Their take of it was about $400 million, and they hired me and a CFO to kind of go, well, the father's 64, the sons are in their early 40s, they also have 2 sisters. How do you kind of structure a family office such that that wealth can kind of pass from one generation to the other, from an entrepreneur to people who are,
not necessarily entrepreneurs.
Yeah, exactly. And that was an amazing thing to think through. So
simplifying it, you sit down the first day and you have plus $400 million and you're going to invest it to reach generations.
Absolutely, yeah.
So it's easy to see how the family office helps you in sort of understanding the investment world and allocating money that way. But from an entrepreneurial point of view, what were the sort of upside in allocating capital that way?
I think what's missing from a lot of founders is that you don't generally think about, well, what does this look like when it's a very large business? Yeah, and what was wonderful is I have this duality where I kind of very super interested in investment analysis and thinking about what makes a defensible business when they're very large. So, for example, why hasn't anyone competed well with Coca-Cola? Do you know what I mean? Why is every year Coca-Cola sells a little bit more Coke? Why? Yeah, I think that's a fascinating question. I think it's fascinating to think about why Facebook is so defensible. Yeah, they're all interesting things to kind of pull apart and unpick. But the problem I see with a lot of founders is they generally don't understand what a good business looks like at the end to kind of map out what they should be doing now at a very small scale, right? So and the 2 big things that all kind of big businesses trying to get is differentiation and defensibility, right? So because you're always competing against competitors who have a lot of money to try and take your profits. So Coke's trying to defend its profits over the last 100 years. No one's been able to take it away from them, and it's because they have differentiation and defensibility. So that's the kind of 2 things an investment analysis is always looking for. And I think, to answer your question, I think founders miss that kind of, what does this look like on a bigger scale type question.
So how would you go about that? I want to sell this thing for X dollars. How do I start to even think about and sketch on that long plan?
Yeah, well, I think what we're all trying to do is we're trying to come up with the right activity set, right, to get to where you want to be. And the problem is you have multiple scenarios that you've got to kind of manage for. So you don't know whether the world's going to look like this, or the world's going to look like this, or whatever. So you've got to have different activity sets that map to those different scenarios. But harping back to the earlier point is that one thing you learn when you study big business is you realize that every large technology company has built a large organic marketing channel to do what they've done, right? So if you look at Etsy, for instance, you look at the amount of traffic that comes to the website, look at the portion that's paid versus the portion that's organic. Now, if you know that every large technology company has built a large organic channel to get up and running, well, that's gonna inform your activity set for when you're a founder. Because if you're trying to build a business with $100 million worth of revenue, you can't fund that with marketing. You can't find a VC fund who's going to go, oh, here's $200 million, go spend that on marketing to get that $100 million revenue line. It just doesn't happen, right? Every founder must find a path to get an organic marketing channel to work so you can get to that scale, because you just don't, the capital's not available. So it's kind of building insights like that kind of inform what you're doing at a smaller scale. So
why aren't Paul Bennetts in a big corp job? Like, why don't you have a job?
I think so. What happened to me was, I had a fantastic role at Esri Ventures. It was kind of like the dream job. I blogged about it so much, saying I have the best job in Australia, and I really did. But what I started doing was like, hey, I've got to figure out how I'm going to retire 30 years from now. So I started doing more and more research. It's like, okay, what's happening with my super? Who's looking after it? What are they doing with it? So I started going, well, hang on, if I'm an investment professional and I'm struggling with this, then think about people who can't make investment decisions as easily as I can, trying to figure this out. So I just thought, I really believe that I could get a team around this problem that could do a way better job than what's in the industry. So superannuation is a savings and an investment product. So I'm 35, I'm trying to retire when I'm 65, but if I ask people, hey, you're going to work for the next 30 years to have enough money to retire, well, what number do you need? Is it $2 million? Is it $3 million? And everyone gives me that look. They're like, fuck, I don't know that answer. I don't know that answer. I don't know what it is.
Stop!
Yeah, exactly. But how do you know whether you're saving enough this year if you don't even know what the end goal is, right? So what we're doing at Spaceship is just slowing it down and just say, oh, think about savings first. Think about whether your 9.5% of your salary that you're sending to your super fund now is going to be enough for you to retire, right? And think about that way more than whether you should be with this super fund or that super fund or this super fund. Most people don't realize that what we call life today is really only about 100 years old. If you take a city like Paris, right? If we were living in Paris right now in the 20s, which is less than 100 years ago, you and I would be going home to an apartment each, right? Separate apartments. You would have electricity, I wouldn't have electricity, right? So half the apartments didn't even have electricity in the 20s. So you think about what life would have been like, and the idea of a 5-day work week, it's only been around since 1926. Henry Ford came up with it. Before then it was a sort of free-for-all. It's like, whatever, each company works it out for themselves. So what I like to do is just have people think, well, what we call the social construct of now is actually a set of decisions that were made by people like 100 years ago. Do you know what I mean? So, and when you kind of get that around your head, you think, well, actually things can be different. Superannuation's only been around since 1992. It's pretty new, So let's kind of think about it from first principles. What are we trying to do? All we're trying to do is have enough money when we're 65 years old to retire. And then you just kind of work back from that. Well, what does that mean? Well, the first question I want to know is how much I need to save this year? What financial market return am I assuming over the next 30 years to retire? Well, if you assume a 6% return and I assume a 2% return, I need to save more. I'm more conservative. I don't want to assume a big market return. I just want to go, no. I prefer to be over-conservative, over-save, and then wake up when I'm 50 with too much money, then wake up when I'm 50 and go, oh shit, why did I think that markets were going to do so well?
You don't want to be the 20% guy.
Exactly.